Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Mike Paciello with the Paciello Group, along with my colleague Billy Gregory from TPG. We're sorry running a little bit late, but we just were experiencing some minor technical difficulties on our end. Hey, we've got a great session here hosted by Sony Entertainment, and we're going to get right into this. So I'm just going to turn this session over to Kevin Chung from Sony, and he's going to introduce us into their session and to what Sony Entertainment's been doing in the world of accessibility. So Kevin, just give me a second here. I'm going to turn you on. You'll have the presentation, and you can go from there. There you go.
Thanks, Mike. Well, really appreciate the invitation to participate in this year's ID24. On behalf of Sony PlayStation and iDog, we're just really delighted to be here to talk about some of the things that we've been doing with accessibility on the platform. Since last spring and fall, we've been doing some things on the console side for the platform with some system software updates. But what we're here to talk about today is probably really exciting, which is gameplay accessibility in our latest game, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. And with me today are two of the game designers from the Naughty Dog studio, Schatz and Alex Neonakis. And really, they're the ones who are going to talking mostly about really what they did in Uncharted 4 to make the game more accessible. And to kind of kick things off, though, we have a little video to show, hopefully, which kind of talks about the process behind the scenes. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, did we establish that there wasn't any audio for the video, right? So, we'll give it a try.
Last year, actually, this guy by the name of Josh Straub reached out to me, and he was asking if I was going to GDC, and if I could meet with him and talk to him about accessibility in games.
One of my options for entertainment were limited. What developers need to realize is that these games do more than just entertain the disabled. First of all, they provide an escape from sort of the doldrums of being disabled. And second of all, they provide a social space where instead of being judged by physical appearance, we're purely judged by the actions that we do and the things that we produce in the game.
I went to Bruce and Neil, our game director and creative director, and I explained to them what Josh had explained to me, which was like, he loved Uncharted, huge Uncharted fan, couldn't beat Uncharted 2 because there's a series of doors that would button match through the end.
I was faced with the reality that I had played this entire game. I had spent $60 on it, and I could not get any further without the help of an able-bodied person.
The truth is that in order to play our games, we really require a pretty high bar of proficiency for use of the dual stick analog controller.
One of the big things in terms of accessibility is let more people enjoy the experience that you are also experiencing.
I started talking to Alex. He was like, well, during Last of Us, we started with sort of an initiative for accessibility. Let's make this for a wider audience, but how much wider can we make it?
You don't need to make the game so that you can play it with a headset. You just need to make the games controllers flexible enough.
Coming onto Uncharted, we had a lot of a big push for including more accessibility features.
So we have an option now in steps so that you can hold down the button and it acts as if you're pressing the button continuously. And that works for things like lifting a door up, or even incorporated into our melee. So if you hold down the punch button, you can continue to punch. The main thing that I was interested in was trying to make it so that you could play Uncharted 4 without using the right stick as much. Basically, you only have to use one stick at a time. And we've had to implement a couple of specialized features to GMs. In other games, for instance, since we are a cover-based shooter, when you take cover, the camera has to pan around to be able to see the direction you're looking. That was one of the first things we noticed that you needed. Second thing is when you're in combat, you need the camera to also help point the enemies out. So there's a little bit of help towards, if you're running towards an enemy, the camera will push a little faster in order to get them into your sights. And then the second thing we implemented was a lock-on feature. As you pull up your aim button, then it'll snap to a target and you can choose.
We pride ourselves on being an inclusive community for our gamers, so it's just a natural extension that accessibility would be a priority for us as a company and for Naughty Dog as a studio.
When I first came on to the Multiplier team, I realized that we had always had our team set up as red team and green team, and it was really hard for me to be able to play the game, and because I am color. Change it to red and blue, and I went ahead and changed it in code, and nobody ever questioned it. Now we have red team and blue team.
I think video games for a lot of people are often about being able to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do, experience great adventures. And so when you find that there are some people who can't enjoy those things, it's kind of crushing.
The goal of our accessibility initiative is really just to try to make our game as widely accessible as possible, so that really you can come to our game without having to worry about, am I going to have trouble interacting?
When I turn my game, like Uncharted, I'm not, commander military. I'm a splash-looking, ne'er-do-well treasure hunter, like, prisoner. That's great characteristic why accessibility is so crucial. Because the more games that offer that, the more people with disabilities will be able to skate and have better lives.
After hearing that, I was like, okay, like this is important, and I want to, make sure that everybody gets to experience this and have fun.
Over. All right, is everyone back? We hope that went okay. We were a little unsure about whether the audio was coming through or not, but we should be able to share these videos actually online after this, and hopefully that'll be just fine. You can watch it on YouTube, that sort of stuff, and with subtitles, things like that. So anyway, I guess we can start talking about how we got started with this during Uncharted 4. If you want to.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm Alex, Neonakis, and this is Em. So like it said in the video, I was hit up by Josh about what we were doing with accessibility in Uncharted, and he had some suggestions. And so we just talked on the phone, and after only an hour conversation with him, I was like, yeah, I'm completely on board. These changes seem very doable, and I talked to Em. Em had already been thinking about it on her own, and together we just decided we were going to sort of push this forward for the team.
Yeah, and I guess I was coming to it more from a perspective of I've got a lot of friends and family that I've always been very proud of the games we've made, and a lot of them just for whatever reason weren't able to access the controls very well. We really require a lot of proficiency to play our game of like aiming, shooting, button presses at the exact timing and stuff like that. And so I was really hoping to add some features like a lock-on, like camera assistance and stuff like that could help my friends and family. And when I started talking to Alex about it, she was like, what about this? This could actually tie in with all of our accessibility. So then pretty much it started from that point coming together, and she and I sort of just went with it. What else can we add to our accessibility initiative? And we were both going online. There are a lot of just online resources available about like things that game developers can add to their games to help persons with disabilities. And so we were going at it a little blind, I have to admit, and it's not a perfect sort of effort, but we got in what we could, and I'm pretty proud of what we accomplished. But I'd like to, going forward, also continue to push this sort of initiative.
Yeah, I think both of us learned pretty quickly how it really requires the perspective of people who live this life, who have these experiences, and that was what was so invaluable about talking to somebody like Josh or looking up resources. There's things that we would have never considered on our own, and so using those resources, that they were incredibly invaluable. Just like hearing people out and getting feedback. And then the playtesting, like actually watching people use these systems and experience the game was just completely changed our perspective on this.
Yeah, so we typically, we playtest our game, especially in probably the last year of development on any project. We typically playtest maybe the last 6 months, like every week, you know, and a lot of times it's, you know, we've never had a playtest with persons with disabilities, and so Sony was able to sort of coordinate a playtest that we did over a weekend. We did 2 separate playtests over the same weekend to be able to see a selection from our game. We had people come in that had a variety of impairments, and to try to play our game and see if we can get feedback. And based on that, we were able to make a few tweaks here and there. I'd like to, I guess in the future, sort of try that earlier and see if we can get things rolling earlier to better cater to people's specific needs.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very, like, it was just a completely different experience. It was so informative to have. It's one thing to, like, talk about it and to read about it, and then it's another thing to actually sit with somebody as they're experiencing these things and see, like, what specifically is giving them trouble. And so, like anything, it's such an iterative process that we are, you know, hoping to expand on moving forward. So, yeah, feedback is probably the most important aspect of that, since we don't live with any of this. So having, you know, hearing from somebody who does or from multiple people who do is incredibly, incredibly important.
Not just that, but also from time to time we get emails from fans that appreciate, I guess, the efforts that we've done or voice frustrations about things that we didn't do. And we send those out to the whole team, and good or bad, all the developers at Naughty Dog are very, we're very proud of our games, and we, I guess we're very passionate about trying to bring our games to everyone. And a lot of times, a lot of our fellow developers just don't think about the accessibility issues that some people experience. And so hearing from our fans like that, positive or negative, gets, I guess, those of us that are sort of championing those efforts within the studio, gets us a lot more goodwill and, I guess currency with our coworkers to be able to get cooperation. So it really, really helps us move things along.
So we have other videos as well that we can show to sort of demonstrate what the specific things are that we put in. One thing that I've learned from this is it's going to be important in the future to sort of get it out there that these are features that we have and I think this is going to help a lot in, like, reading through forums and stuff. You kind of see that people be like, oh wow, I didn't know that you could turn this on. Like, I didn't know that you could have lock on aim, or I didn't know that you could have the hold instead of the tap for the button prompts. So yeah, that's another thing that we need to, like, push. Like, this is a thing that we have now.
That's been sort of a difficult sort of struggle for us as well. Is like, how do we just, any player that picks up our game, how do we bring that to their attention? And we do have a menu that as soon as you start up Uncharted 4, it pops up a bunch of different options, including accessibility. And I guess as a criticism of it, it may bring up too many. I don't know if people are going to skip by it. We tried a number of different ways of trying to gauge in-game based on your gameplay if you were having trouble controlling the camera, if you were having trouble aiming at people, and a lot of times those things, can come across as patronizing in game. If you're playing the game and you just died and it brings up a message that says, by the way, would you like lock-on? But so we're still sort of working on the process for how do we show that to people. But so we've got a video here that talk about the button mashing one first. Sure. So I think that's the...
You know how to do this. How to do the computer.
So as Alex was detailing in the video that we showed earlier, one of the basically #1 requests was we have a lot of in the past button mashing games where it's like someone's choking you or you're lifting a door where you have to press on the button really fast to lift it, and a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that. So anyway, here's the demonstration of what we did for that.
So I don't think there's audio with it, but I'll just talk over.
Is that the wrong
Oh,
one?
this is the wrong one.
I'm so sorry.
It's
That
button holds, the one underneath it.
button holds. There we go.
So this is a combat scenario where normally you would have that tap prompt and it would fill up, the little green thing would fill up as you're tapping it. And so in this case, we turned it on. This shows how you turn it on. Go into accessibility, and then repeated button presses. I would have toggled that from tap to hold. So the little circle next to it meant that hold is now turned on. So that is for every situation like that in the game. You don't have to do the tap anymore. And then you can do it for pretty much anything that used that, right? Like any of the door lifts, or that was a specific like combat one, but
Right.
I don't think once you turn it on, then you don't have to do those taps.
That was a bit of a challenge, making sure that it sort of worked in every single case. Things like, yeah, lifting doors, or when a guy is choking you, those are sort of different, I guess, as far as code goes. But we think we got all of them, or, you know, so let's see. I guess then we can talk about, let's see, our subtitles. So we've always had subtitles on our game, of course, but let's see. One thing we added based on feedback from our playtesters is that it's hard for people that have hearing impairments to know who's talking. So we essentially have character name that presents who's talking here.
Yeah, in a situation like this is another thing that I guess I would have never have considered until it was brought up to me that it's nice to see the subtitles, but when you have multiple people in a scene, and in that scene in particular, are we still screen sharing? I don't know if we are.
I think we are.
Okay. Yes or no?
No.
Okay. In that situation with like Nate, Sam's back was to Nate, and there's like a kind of moment where you can't really tell who's saying it, so the value of having the names next to it became so clear to me once I took the, I listened to people, or once we all sat and spoke to people and did research on it, that, oh, of course, that's a thing that would be important.
Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and show our camera assist system. So essentially this idea is that a lot of other games have had it before, but we've never had an Uncharted before, where essentially the camera tries to move around to go in the direction that you're moving. So, but we have a couple of special considerations that we need to have for Uncharted because it's a cover-based shooter. So let's see. So here we are in Madagascar, and as you can see, I'm running around here, and I'm not using the right stick here at all, the camera stick. So as you see, the camera does not move its orientation. But here in accessibility, I'm going to turn on the camera assist, and as you see, as I'm moving around, the camera turns to try to get behind where Drake is moving. And so let's see, if you take cover, for instance, when you take cover, you're needing to point in the direction the enemies are. So as you take cover here, the camera moves quickly to be able to aim in that direction where you can start shooting. So even though there's no enemies here. Same thing works when you are climbing as well. So if I climb up here, so around the corner, as you can see, the camera turns in order to look. So I'm not using the right stick here at all, and the camera is, for the most part, keeping us in view of the action. See, as I go down the stairs here, the camera also sort of pan down. It does vertical and horizontal. So I'm also going to try, we have another option for camera assist for vehicles that's separate. because some people have preferences, they want one or the other. So there is an automatic sort of camera assist that happens anyway, like when you're driving. So I'm not touching the right stick here. As you can see, it turns with the Jeep, and this is sort of the default setting. But as you can see, if I start to back up, the camera's not going to move here. So based on playtest feedback, we found that was frustrating to a lot of people. And let's see, here's a case where if I just set the camera right here, so I just move the camera here, it's not going to move until I start moving forward right here. So we've got a camera assist option for the vehicles. Go ahead and set it right there. That, as you can see, I drive forward, it works just about the same, but if I back up, the camera's going to turn to look in the direction that we're going. And if I move the camera onto the side, like I did before, and I drive, it's a lot more, I guess you should say, aggressive or proactive, moving the camera behind the Jeep. So that's sort of the difference there. All right. So
did you want to do the lock-on aim as well?
Yeah. Let's see. So
in this situation, this is showing our default setting, which is
let me restart.
Restart it. Yeah, sorry. It kind of takes a second. So I'm just aiming with the default controls, and then I turn on lock-on aim, which basically it adds another layer to the reticle to show you that it's going to lock. And then as soon as I toggle the weapon, it basically finds the nearest NPC and locks to them, making aiming a lot easier.
Yeah, we apologize if it's kind of hard to see based on the resolution here. The idea is that as you're moving around, when enemies pop up, there's a little reticle that pops over them, and then when you pull to aim, it zooms in on that specific enemy so that you can shoot at them. So let's see, what else do we have in our bag of tricks? Let's see.
Control customization.
Let's see. Oops, I need to share the screen. Okay, this is just a quick look at some of the controls, just general customization that we allow. So it's not actually in the accessibility menu, but we let you change in the let's see, controls menu, and you'll be able to select different, basically, schemes for how you set up your buttons. Then right here, we allow you to flip the functionality of the left and right sticks, so whichever works best for you, and then sticks while you're aiming. We'll come back to that feature later. Here's the shoulder buttons, so if you want to change where you shoot or what button you press when you aim, that's where you do it. So
yeah, we wanted to afford as much flexibility as possible with the controller, so people could, you know, use the controller however works for them. Basically, we tried to get as much possibility in there as we could.
Yeah. Let's see.
I believe you can also do some of that, the mapping in the Sony OS as well. I know that they, Kevin actually showed us that there's a lot of stuff that's been added in there to map controls to whatever.
Right, just in the sort of OS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, on the left side,
yeah.
We added that ring and we could a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. So, button modes, I think. Okay. So if you give me just a second. So what I want to demonstrate here is this shows a little bit of the lock-on that that Alex was talking about earlier. So essentially, as you can, oh, I'm sorry, mistaken about what this video is. So the idea here is that we knew that a lot of gamers have trouble with the fact that we need to you need to hold down the aim button and then shoot. So it's like you have to press and hold various buttons at the same time. So as you can see right here, the default is when I aim, it stays there as long as I hold the button, but as soon as I release, it pulls back. So I'm going to go into the options here. Accessibility options, and we have aim mode here. So change it from hold to toggle, and that way, as soon as I toggle it on, let me wait until this guy turns around so he doesn't start shooting me. But as you can see, I'm going to press it once, and it stays there, and then I press it once again in order to come back. So another feature here is being able to flip the functionality of the sticks only while aiming. And the idea here is that I was hoping that you'd be able to play the game essentially without touching the right stick at all. It's not super easy to do, but it's basically as soon as you aim, you're able to then control your aiming with the move stick, and then when you stop aiming, it goes back to using just the move controls here. So I'm not playing this right here without touching the aim stick at all, the camera stick. We're just going to play simply just with this feature turned on. So you see I aim, I shoot, go back to it. That feature was one that was sort of like, we weren't really sure if this was going to be super useful to people, but it seems like something pretty easy to do, and that it seemed like people would, I guess, benefit from it. But so if that helps you, let us know. But
yeah, or if you could see improvements for it, we are very open to feedback about this stuff and welcome it. So yeah, we'd love to hear what people think. Or if they have suggestions for changes. So did you want to, is there anything else that you have for it, or did you want to switch to questions now?
I have one more,
one
more thing.
Sorry.
So I guess early on, one of my goals was I was trying to make it so that you could play the game without touching the camera stick nearly as much, and that was sort of, at least in the studio, like kind of a crazy idea almost, like how do you play Uncharted without you know, the dual stick sort of setup. But I think that if you see, let's see, where is it?
Left stick only.
Left stick only? There we go. Oh, I don't think we're sharing our screen. So, as you can see right now, well, or maybe you can't see, but there's a lock-on reticle over that guy. So right now I've got the camera assist and the lock-on turned on. So I'm playing this whole combat setup right here without touching the camera stick. So what we're seeing here is the game trying to compensate for where the player action is. So someone saw me. So right here, we implemented a feature based on feedback that if someone starts shooting you from off screen, you can press down on the D-pad and it flips the camera around. That's what just happened right there. Someone was shooting me from behind, and I pressed down on the D-pad and it flipped around to be able to see them. And then once they were in my view, I was able to just aim and start shooting. So this is kind of interesting. With the lock-on, you can actually see through the smoke even a little better. It locks onto people through the smoke. And it probably demonstrates it pretty well, but
Em and Alex, so one thing I wanted you guys to comment on is the fact that these features are available at different difficulty levels, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, all of these features are available for all difficulty levels. We did have a little bit of trouble. The lock-on aim does provide a pretty significant advantage to combat, and so we felt we had to make a little bit of a compromise. But while you can use lock-on for any difficulty, we set it so that you can't get the trophy, I guess, for hard and crushing because of the significant advantage it gives you, but that you can play it and have fun with it. And also in multiplayer, we had to disable it for multiplayer gameplay because of the advantage it gives you. We know that, like in Grand Theft Auto, they actually had a separate sort of playlist so that players that had lock-on could play one playlist, and players that didn't could play the other one. We were worried we don't have quite the numbers, I think, that Grand Theft Auto, for instance, has. And so we decided that at least instead of splintering our audience, basically we would have one playlist and not have that feature. So I'm sorry about that, but maybe we can do better next time. But yeah, all the other features, without exception, can be used at any time.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to start the questions and answers?
Yeah, I think that would be good to take some questions now. Thanks, guys, for showing us those different features.
Sure.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much. That's a great presentation. I know it's kind of difficult with the latency problems and whatnot in HD. Billy, are you following the ID24 tweet hashtag? Are there any questions that came out of that? I have a couple points I want to make, but go ahead.
I haven't seen any questions yet.
Yeah, I know Ian's got one. So Kevin, we know Ian's.
Yeah,
Ian
here we
Hamilton's already. Yeah, there he goes. So he put it up there.
The question for all three. Oh, it's a whole URL. Where are we? Okay, first I said I love the presentation. I often speak to individual AAA devs or designers who have tried to get some good accessibility stuff done but can't get it past their leads or execs, often on grounds of business case. Any words of wisdom for either of them or for the decision makers?
We were hoping that, being a AAA company that has a lot of, there's a lot of media around Uncharted. It's a popular franchise. I know Em and I and everyone here, and especially Kevin, we're hoping that this would be sort of a push for other devs that, their business is, and it is hard for people to accept, like, oh, these are big changes and a lot of time that Em and I and a lot of people here put into this. But yeah, that's what we were hoping this would do, and resources like the ones that we used, like Josh's website that reviews Dagger System, they review video games against how accessible they are. That's what we were hoping this would do. For us at Naughty Dog, we have a very unique culture where, it's kind of a bit of a flat structure. So Em and I felt passionate about this, and when we brought it to our leads, they were like, yeah, show us what you can do. Like, prove to us that this is a thing that we can do, that it can fit into what the scope already is, especially since we came kind of late with some of this stuff. And that's the type of culture that Naughty Dog has, and I think that that's a part of what makes it a really good company, is that willingness to kind of allow us to sort of figure stuff out and take something and run with it. So I guess, yeah, I would hope that other developers would look to this as an example and just copy it or improve upon it.
Yeah, I mean, I found that, most of the features that we put in, it wasn't so much that it took a lot of time or specific effort. It was just someone had to sort of make sure that they weren't falling through the cracks. And in our case, for Uncharted 4, that was Alex and I. And like Alex was saying, we really have a lot of freedom to be able to try to improve our game. And we often try to say, I guess everyone is a game designer at Naughty Dog. I guess both of us are game designers, but I guess what that means is that everyone is encouraged to try to improve our game. The basic idea is you try to prove something until it works out well, and then it's sort of fully supported. I think as far as from a business perspective, at least my guess is, I'm hoping that just exposure that we're trying to address these issues hopefully will, I don't know, maybe cultivate some goodwill among our fans, and just exposure about the game and how we care a lot about how our players are able to access our game. So that includes not just persons with a disability, but any gamer,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult question, though. I mean,
yeah, companies are also different, and we only know about how Naughty Dog works and the ones in Sony. So it's up to the individual developers to hopefully see the value in this, and that's what we were hoping this would do, is provide that value to them, show it to them. Like, there is a lot of value to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Alex and Em said, I mean, it really is, it's going to vary from developer to developer and company to company, but at least at Sony and PlayStation and Naughty Dog, I think the culture is very supportive of including as many gamers as possible to enjoy our products and our titles. And I know here, the executives here are extremely proud of the effort that Naughty Dog's put forth here as one of our studios and in such a high-profile title. And I think the lesson learned really is that, like they said, if you think about it and raise awareness, it can be done. It just needs to be made something that's part of the design fabric. And I'm no game designer, but I think they really did a great job here in this case. And we hope that it'll set a good precedent for other studios, both internally and externally.
Yeah, Kevin, this is Mike Paciello. I just want to thank you, Em, and Alex. I think the presentation said an awful lot, not just in what we saw visually, but frankly speaking, as I kind of mentioned to you, I think yesterday when we were talking about this, I think that you've raised the bar significantly here, and even more so now that I've seen the amount of effort and the work that the folks at Naughty Dog have put into the design. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about here is empathic design. You talk an awful lot about integrating users with disabilities into your play testing or user testing, developing personas of game players, so to speak. All of these things are characteristics that are critical to ensuring accessibility across the board, regardless of what the interface or what the platform is. And the fact that the gaming industry tends to take the lead on the creative spectrum of software design and development, I think says an awful lot about what efforts and investments you guys have made in this field. So kudos to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been really an honor to be part of this effort. So
yeah, it's been incredibly somewhat affirming, during really hard times during this project. And then we would have this play test come in and see these people enjoying our game, and it was really, really incredible to see that our efforts actually paid off for those people.
Yeah, it did, and just keep making the progress. In our last session, we had Lainey Feingold, who tends to be on the legal side of this, or Kevin's side of the equation. One of the things that we both talked about is the positive messaging that comes out of, frankly speaking, large corporate entities like Sony Entertainment and big players, like Naughty Dog in terms of the gaming. And when you push that envelope, so to speak, and that creative edge, in being fully inclusive where people with disabilities are concerned, I can't think of anything other than good things to say. It's got to be positive, and you should be able to capitalize and build on it.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's definitely a creative company, and folks at Naughty Dog show that with all of their great games. But in talking to our executives and people around here about accessibility, I found that despite my legal role and other things like that nature, people around here want to do the right thing, right? They want to do the right thing by our consumers, by our fans, and that's largely what happened here. When Alex and Em heard the story from Josh and others that some people wanted to enjoy our game in different ways and ways that maybe they couldn't, they stepped up to the plate and met the challenge. And other studios like MLB, The Show, have done the same thing in the past as well. When we hear a need, we answer it.
Excellent, excellent. Billy, I don't know if you want to add anything. It's we got 10 minutes here before the next session.
I don't have much to add. I mean, other than the work you're doing is fantastic. What we saw was incredible. And to be honest, there's a lot of features in there you added for people with disabilities that I can see benefiting a lot of different gamers. I mean, as an older gamer myself, I can't keep up with a lot of the fast-paced action. So the camera lock when driving and things like that's going to help everybody. So I mean, you set out obviously to help one group of disabled gamers, but you've really helped a whole generation of older gamers at the same time, which I think is fantastic. So you've really done some great work.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from some of my coworkers that are like, my wife never played my game before, but she's playing it now and she's really enjoying it, and it's really gratifying. I just more and more games seem to sort of be widening our audience, and unless we are really making a sort of initiative to try to include a wider audience as far as controls go, I think we're just going to be leaving a lot of potential customers behind, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, listen, Alex and Emily, thank you again very much for taking time to do the walkthrough with us. We look forward to it. I know there's been a lot of tweets and the videos out there for everybody to actually see it in real time, so to speak. Kevin, thanks to you and to your team, frankly speaking, for pulling all this together. I know you guys were burning the midnight oil, literally, to pull this together, and for our event, and again for all of our constituency organizations and our colleagues in the field, this was an A+ job. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Our pleasure. So we're going to move on. We're going to take about a 10-minute break here, and then our next session, Billy I think is with John Gibbons, yeah? And so we'll drop this show, and we look forward to seeing everybody in ID24 in about another 10 minutes. Thank you.